I'd like to call this meeting to order, to our special council meeting, November 22nd. Just welcome each one here. And at this time, I'd like to call the land acknowledgement that on the land which we gather is traditional territory of the Nishnawbe, Ottawa, and Mississauga peoples. Disclosure of pecuniary interests. Confirmation that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the agenda for November 22nd, 2024 special council meeting as presented. May I have a mover? Councillor McBurney, seconder. Councillor Whitfield, all in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interests and the general nature thereof. Seeing none. Public meetings, hearings, and delegations. This time, we're going to have staff reports, and I'm just going to turn it over to Director Towns at this time, please.
Director McAllister first.
Okay. Director McAllister, sorry, for number 5.1, Public Works 2024-36, Wing and Water Storage Options, follow-up report. At this time, we're going to have questions. Dr. Towns is going to, or McAllister is going to present his report to us.
Thank you, Reeve. As requested, we've brought back a report. Council requested on the October 3rd, 2024 council meeting for some follow-up information. We've brought back a report outlining that follow-up information. Just to give you some high-level details, and talking to the Mr. Pasner about the current design being built. But his design is built on not having to add any other infrastructure into the system as far as pressure goes. If we go bigger, there's a concern that we would need to add pressure reducing valves and stuff into the system. That would be an additional cost to manage that. Our numbers in here are our best current estimates. We won't know the exact numbers until we put a procurement out and see what comes back. So we're just getting estimates from the companies that provide either a standpipe or a water tower. And then I believe I've touched on everything else, but I'm available for questions if anybody has any.
Thank you very much. At this time, are there any questions for Director McAllister, please? Councilor Palmer, please.
Thank you, Reeve. Yeah, Dex. It doesn't, in my way of thinking, it probably wouldn't matter what type of pipe or stack we use. Pressure reducing valves would be needed anyways, right?
Through you, Reeve, no. If we went to a water tower, we would need that pressure reducing valves because we have the full capacity, but it's controlled at the tower.
With a valve.
Yes, but that would be included as part of the tender for the tower, whereas the standpipe, if we go much bigger, the pressure it will create pressure in the system. And then we would have to put some pressure reducing valves in to relieve some of that pressure in the system.
Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Thanks for your Reeve. It seems like the only major downside of a standpipe is the maintenance on the booster pumps. Do we have any idea what the annual cost of that maintenance is?
Through you, Reeve. Right now, we're not sure what the annual maintenance cost is. We don't know what the booster pump would be. We're just not sure until we tender out, see what comes back, see what the pump is, see what the equipment to run it is, and then we would have an idea what's going to be needed. Right now, pretty standard practice is you would test that monthly. So you'd have an operator go out, test, make sure everything works at least monthly to ensure that it operates. But that doesn't guarantee that, you know, when everything's failing, that it's going to operate because it's not operating continuously. So I would equate it to like your car. You know, if you leave your car sitting in the driveway and you only go start it for 5 minutes every month, you know, when you go to drive it after a year, it's probably not going to run that great. But like we would try and maintain it as best we could. We would try and catch any problems. But again, it's just sitting there until it's needed, unfortunately.
Can I ask a?
Yes, follow up, please.
And so my other question really is on construction costs. There's a statement here that the construction costs are similar that may be of the actual tower, but if we go with a water tower, we would have to do the design, which we already have in hand for the standpipe. We would have to purchase land for a water tower. We already have it in hand for a standpipe. And of course, wherever the new water tower goes, there'd be the connection cost to get from that water tower to our mains, which of course that cost doesn't exist with a standpipe. So all in, it's possible that a water tower may be $2 or $3 million more than a standpipe, correct?
It is possible, yes. What you're gaining in your water tower is the water capacity. So as the engineers have identified, you only have the top couple meters, let's say 4 or 5 in the standpipe, whereas a water tower, let's say you got 2,500 cubic meters in both. You only have, so much in the standpipe, whereas in the water tower, you can use that full 2,500 cubic meters at all times. So
But we actually have 3,000 functional cubic meters with a standpipe and booster pumps, correct?
with the booster pump, yes.
Which is actually greater than a water tower.
Yes, with the booster pump, yes.
No more questions. Thank you, Reeve.
Thank you. Deputy Reeve, please, then I'll go to Councillor Palmer.
All right, thank you. My question was just answered by the booster pump capacity was that, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Actually, mine got answered as well, Reeve.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, jeez.
Go ahead, Councillor Van Hitterson, please.
Thank you, Reeve. For the needs in the community, for fire suppression, for expansion of the community, how long, when we choose a standpipe, how long would it take that we don't have enough water to take care of all of that? Sorry, and have to look after our water infrastructure and booster pumps?
So if I understand your question, it's how long in time
Yes.
before we need to upgrade to a bigger standpipe based on how far we've expanded, is that correct?
Not a bigger standpipe. If we have the new standpipe,
Yep.
how long then would it take to update infrastructure and buy a booster pump? Because if there's a booster pump, is what you're saying, our water infrastructure wouldn't be good enough?
No, so our water infrastructure would be okay currently with the standpipe and booster pump.
Okay.
Where we would have some issues is if we were trying to use more than that top couple meters of capacity in the standpipe. So one of the questions that was asked is the biggest standpipe, and we have to balance that with, we can only go so big before we need to start introducing pressure relief valves and other things into the system to maintain that pressure. Right, so we were trying to answer that question, but we don't really know without, trying to weigh the options, right? So for example, if we went 9 meters higher, sorry, I think the proposal's 33 meters. If we went 45 meters, that might be too high and create pressure problems in the system. So that's sort of the trade-off. We need to keep it enough that we're not pushing too much pressure out into the system. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and would the eventually new standpipe have enough water for the fire department to say if there's a fire in the school or at Hutton Heights, anywhere, would they have, without booster pumps, have enough water to take good care of that fire and save lives?
So depending on how big, what gets going, those details that I direct to Chief Krager. A big fire without the booster pump, you may not. It just depends on the size of the fire, how much equipment they need, how much water they're pulling from the all in Veolia. If we're not to turn on like the wells and start pumping that way, that's where that booster pump would automatically kick in. So we're not trying to get people from home. We're not trying to respond that way. It's sort of controlling itself. So when they start drawing water, it's going to feed the water. Welcome.
Councillor Palmer, please.
Thank you, Reeve. So I just want to understand correctly, the booster pump would empty the tank? Is that how it's planned as water, and it opens up pumps for the various wells?
I wouldn't say it empties the tank. What it does is gives you the use of most of that capacity of the water in the tank. So the standpipe, you know, without the booster pump, you can only use that top couple meters. My understanding is with the booster pump, you can use almost the full capacity of that standpipe.
Follow up,
Well,
Reeve?
follow up, Mr. Palmer, please.
For stagnation, to reduce stagnation, potential stagnation, I was wondering, would you just use a regular pump just to empty it out without firing up the booster station, or would the booster station come on every once in a while? Just as more of a maintenance thing to empty the water out, get some new water's coming in.
So through you, Reeve, we wouldn't necessarily empty it out and fill it back up. We would circulate the water to keep that water fresh and not get stagnant in there. If that makes more sense, we would never want to drain it right down because it would probably take some time to bring it back up to its capacity, and we never want to get to that point. The water would be circulating, you know, as the water's drawn out, new fresh water will be put back in. So you're kind of circulating that water consistently.
Any other questions go ahead, Councillor Wright?
Yeah, just really, just kind of a comment on the fire suppression. My understanding, talking to Mr. Krieger, is one of the advantages we have having a rural urban mix is that, you know, we have large barn fires and stuff like that we have to deal with, right? So we've got the tankers, and plus we're used to hauling water, right? So that's one of the advantages. We're a purely urban municipality, doesn't necessarily have that large tanker capacity, and having larger reservoirs of pressurized water to fight fires is much more important. So that's one of the advantages we have. Thank you.
Deputy Reeve, please.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. I just wonder if you give just a slight overview of the entire water system. Like if we're putting money into a new standpipe, and is there any other infrastructure to support that standpipe that's going to be needed, and then that may need to be added into this one project? Like if there's a new well, or there's work at a well that you know, needs to maybe a new pump in it to bring the system up to you know, a decent longevity, you know, that we're not just facing another, you know, large project again in 2 years or 3 years. Is there anything that you would foresee that would need replacing other than the North Branch? We're all well aware of that, but that's going the other way.
Through you, Reeve, currently right now, our infrastructure is definitely aging. A lot of it is, I would say, closer to its end of life. I am aware that in Blythe, some of the well houses and stuff need some repair and will need some work. The specific details I don't have on me right now, but I could get them for you, but sorry. So there is a SCADA update that's needed. Our SCADA system is dated. It's really not supported at this point other than by one person. So that will need to be updated at some point. There is other ongoing maintenance that will be needed. Like I say, some of our stuff is getting to the end of the life cycle, as well as other changes as far as regulations and that. You know, we may need backup generators at those wells, so they come on if we have a power outage. There are things like that that will be coming. But staff and the contractor are maintaining the current system as best we can. But like I say, we're coming to the end of life cycle on a lot of that infrastructure.
Okay, do you feel that then those projects would just be serviced through the regular budget or process, or will we be seeing another lump?
Through you, Reeve, you'll probably be seeing another lump.
Okay.
It's Those projects are large million-dollar projects, so you'll be seeing it through council through reports.
Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, just a question on timing. So for the standpipe option, design seems to be complete, and I assume the intent would be to get a new standpipe replaced by end of 2026. Is that correct?
If we have a decision now, we would direct RJ Burnside to finish and move to the procurement process. Whether we'd be finished by 26, I don't know. The last numbers I heard is approximately a year out for both standpipe and water tower as far as, you know, their schedules, but until we go to procurement, we won't know where their schedules are at.
And then do we have any idea from a water tower option when that would be ready to go?
So from a water tower option, it would be the same as far as parts and material. The only question would be land and infrastructure getting to it. That would be part of that project.
So we could easily be 4 or 5 years out from getting a water tower going potentially.
Quite potentially.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members, please? Seeing none, I'd like to have a option put forward here in a motion, please. May I have Councillor Wright, please?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. I'm going to recommend that we go with option 2, the standpipe, just because it's a known quantity. Our infrastructure is aging, and it seems like it'll check all the check boxes from a needs perspective.
May I have a seconder? Deputy Reeve? Okay, I'll ask our clerk to read that motion, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated November 22nd, 2024 regarding the Wingham water storage options follow-up report, and further that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to proceed with option 2, standpipe, as the selected option for the future Wingham water storage system. So your movers, Councillor Wright, and your seconders, Deputy Reeve Falconer.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to, go ahead.
Would that be including the pumps, or would that be?
Yeah, through your worship, to answer Council Palmer's question, that would be, we would continue on with the current project that's underway, and that currently includes the booster pumping station in the design.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to take a vote. All in favor? Carried. 5.2, Finance 2024-26, 2025 Draft Fees and Charges Bylaw. At this time, I'll turn over to our Director Towns, please.
Thank you, Reeve. Good morning, Reeve Heffer and members of council and public. I am here today to present with the rest of the senior management team relative to their schedules for the fees and charges, proposed fees and charges. So I will get us started, and we will, as we get through to each respective department schedules, council can speak direct. I will direct it over to that respective director for any questions. So just an overview, the fees and charges bylaw is reviewed by senior staff on an annual basis. In addition, at the October 21st, 2024 regular meeting of council had requested the following information as it relates to the annual update of the fees and charges bylaw. Council requested to have a description of what fees are changing, how much they are changing, the rationale for their change, the intended outcome of the change, and a municipal comparative table. I'm sorry. Oh, what happened there? Sorry. So the rationale and intended outcome, as noted in the staff report, the rationale for the changes are identified in the track changes version of the draft fees and charges bylaw. And in this presentation are as follows. It's to better recover the actual cost to provide services, to incorporate the cost of inflation, and to align with rates and fees charged by other municipalities. The intended outcome is to better recover the actual cost to provide services and to reduce the overall impact on property taxation. In this slide here is a comparator table as requested from council. It's the tax requirement per $100,000 of weighted residential property assessment. The Stats Canada information is 2021 census. The FIR information relating roads and bridges, et cetera, are based on 22 FIR information, and the property taxation is based on 2024. And all this information is available on municipal websites. So the proposed fee changes, the accompanying following slides with the track changes version of the fees and charges bylaw and detail which are proposed and which changes are proposed and by how much. Where possible, for each proposed fee change, comparative municipal data is provided. However, it is very important to note that this data is based on 2024 municipal rates and does not reflect any proposed changes in municipal comparators. So as we go through the presentation, we're going to go through each schedule. So Schedule A is administration, in which there are no recommended changes. Schedule B is licensing and fees. Schedule C, building classes and fees, which there are no recommended changes. Schedule D is cemetery fees. Schedule E will be public works fees and charges. Schedule F, planning fees and plan fees. There is a requirement to apply COLA from October to October annually. At the time this presentation was put together, we did not have that information from the county. At the time, it was at a 1.6%, but late last night, we actually received that information from the county. So that will be in the follow-up fees and charges bylaw. Schedule G, recreation and facilities. Schedule H is water and wastewater. Schedule I, North Huron Children's Programs, which there are no recommended changes. Schedule J, emergency services and non-emergency fees. And Schedule K, development charges. So Schedule A, administration, as noted, there were no proposed changes. Schedule B is licensing and fees, and I will pass that over to Interim Director Clerk Carson Lamb.
Thank you, Director Towns. So as you'll see in the slide deck, only a couple of proposed changes to Schedule B. So the first one, you'll see a comparator of civil marriage ceremony services. So we're proposing to slightly increase that fee and also do a text change to the bylaw to just add the word civil to make it clear that the township does not do religious marriage ceremonies, as we don't have the authority to do that. Some of the NAs there are either because the municipality does not provide the service or because the information wasn't readily publicly available. So yeah, currently the fees are $350 plus HST. We're proposing to increase that to $375 to better align with the actual cost of providing the service. On the next slide is food trucks on municipal property. So as council is aware, this is a change we made to that bylaw around 2 years ago now. We've trialed it out and just aligning better with comparator municipalities on the costs they're charging for the licensing fees. So currently we charge $105. We're proposing to increase that to $150, which is definitely not out of line with the comparator municipalities and is still lower in some cases. The only other thing I'll note beyond the slides is you'll also see changes to the schedule of the bylaw to remove any of the taxi licensing fees, as council has since made a decision to not license taxi cabs and other vehicles for hire anymore. So that would be an overview of the proposed fee changes for Schedule B. And yeah, I'll turn it back over to Director Towns.
Thank you, Interim Director CAO Lamb. Moving on to Schedule C, the building classes and fees. There are no proposed changes. Schedule D, cemetery fees. I will pass it over to Director McAllister.
Thank you. So we've provided what we have currently and our comparators. One thing to consider is that not all municipalities run their own cemetery. There are some that run from a board. That sort of makes it different in how they operate. Next slide, please. So this just lists out the comparators in Huron County that we were able to find based on their website. So staff propose an increase of 3% on all charges. We propose the inclusion of row C with rows A and B for the niche class. With the removal of row C within the rows C and D of the niche class, proposed inclusion of rows E and F. It is proposed that the niche price includes first open, so when we open the niche, and close, and that additional open close are at an additional cost. It is proposed that after hour interments, after 3 p.m. on weekdays and Saturdays, will have an additional cost. Removal of niche plaques will have an admin fee, which is a requirement of the BAO, and proposed additional full cost recovery for niche plaque death date. We've broken out the care and maintenance fees on the next few slides. We are not allowed to do that as per the BAO bylaws. So when this bylaw is put into place, the care and maintenance fee will be included in the total fee. So we've laid everything out there. One thing that we want to make council aware of is the care and maintenance fees are what we collect to maintain the cemetery. We are only allowed to use the interest off that care and maintenance fee. Once our cemetery is full, only the interest from whatever care and maintenance fee we collect is what's supposed to support that cemetery. Right now, I believe that we do use a bit of taxation to support the cemetery. There are other cemeteries out there that is complete cost recovery. So I'd like to put that out there as well. The ground interment fees, they're during regular hours, which is 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then after 2 p.m. on weekend and Saturdays. The columbarium interment fees are per one set of remains during regular hours and per one set of remains after hours as well. Same proposed 3% on all charges. And a proposed new fee for additional cremation interment at the same time of a regular ground interment. So, and then there's new at the bottom and the additional cremation interment. So that's at the same time. Same again, at the bottom, there's the additional cremation interment at the same time. And same with the columbarium, the additional cremation interment at the same time. Disinterment, that needs to be approved by the medical officer of health. The proposed increase is 3% on that. We propose a consolidation of casket and vault to just casket with or without vault. So it'll just be one fee, whether the casket's in or out of a vault. And then some of the extra charges, the 3% on all charges, the proposed inclusion of an off-season beside winter burial, proposed inclusion of after November 15th, winter burial off-season, and proposed addition of niche interment after hours, the first opening. I will note that we are bringing a report back to deal with the winter burial as part of a follow-up report to the report councils received previously, or the delegation council received previously. And that will address the winter burial, or council will make a decision on that. But until that time, we've left that in until a decision's been made by council.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you very much, Director McAllister. Are there any questions at this time? Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, just a couple questions. So the proposed new fee for additional cremation interment at the same time of a regular ground interment. So what if we're looking for cost recovery? I'm just wondering what the basis of that fee is, because it doesn't. I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I don't think there'd be an incremental cost to do cremation interment at the same time as a burial?
No, so there wouldn't, but we are keeping ourselves aligned with other municipalities. Again, you know, we're trying to keep as much out of the taxation and trying to get us more cost per use or cost for users. So we're just keeping our policies aligned with other cemeteries.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from any of the council members? I know we look forward to having the report coming back, and will that be in the near future?
I believe it is.
Okay, thank you. So any other questions from any of the members? That covers it. Thank you for your report, Director McAllister.
Thank you, Reeve. Schedule E, Public Works Fees and Charges. I will hand it back over to Director McAllister.
So again, we did the same thing. We got some comparators that have landfills. We proposed a 3%. The entrance I proposed 3% on all charges with the exception of the entrance permit deposit, which proposes an increase to $2,500. I believe that's supposed to be a deposit. Oh, sorry, it says that. A proposed removal of sale of aggregate materials and rental of equipment, and proposed inclusion of repair damage to municipal property due to others.
Go ahead, Councillor Van Henderson, please.
Would you mind explaining what an entrance permit is? Is it
So an
for-
entrance permit is so someone can install a driveway or an entrance on their property. I believe the fee is
Opening fee, that's what I'm feeling.
no, that's landfills. I believe there we go. So it's 261.75 is what we're proposing for the permit application and the fee for the entrance permit. What we are proposing is instead of a $500 deposit, a $2,500 deposit. So if they damage our roads, if they damage infrastructure, we've got something to recoup. $500 doesn't get us very far.
Oh,
So if let's say they're on an asphalt roadway and they tear up the asphalt, they put grooves in it. We've got a bit of money there to go and make repairs if need be.
okay, and the ditching deposit?
Same thing. So if they go and ditch and they cause damage, we still want some money to recoup. Usually there's not too much damage to ditching, unless it's a fence or something like that. But that's where we're at right now.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from any member, please? Okay.
Okay, thank you. So Schedule F, planning fees and plan fees. As I mentioned during the opening slide with the index, we just received this information late last night from the county. So when we return with our second draft of the fees and charges bylaw, it'll be updated within there.
And through your worship, the only other thing I'll add to that is, and those fees are applied across the entire county, those increases.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Palmer, please.
Thank you, Reeve. Was there a difference? Much of a difference?
Through you, Reeve, to Councillor Palmer, we received, yesterday was a very hectic day and it was received very late in the evening. I did not have an opportunity to review it. But based on the formula of October to October, I did it from October to September. And at that point in time, the CPI was 1.6%. So I wouldn't expect a huge increase from 1 month.
Thank you. Any other questions at all? Okay,
So Schedule G, recreation and facility fees. I will pass the presentation over to Director Stice.
So the first slide is just a reminder of the motion that's on the table to apply the remaining 30% fees to the recreation and facilities fees for the remainder of 2025. So you'll see in a column in the recommendations on the right for what that 30% increase looks like in respect to that motion on the table. However, I did bring a recommendation forward, which is where you'll see the changes in red in the first column under fee. And I brought that recommendation forward based on some feedback earlier this year. So as you may recall, we conducted some surveys with current users, but we also had a larger survey of people. So we were trying to understand from others who may not come to our facilities what would be important to them in the offering of recreation services in the township. And so you may recall, additionally too, I have had some feedback from members of council based on information they have received from their constituents. And so all of that feedback is included in the recommendation brought forward to you today. And so some of that feedback indicated that there is a threshold that people are struggling to be able to pay significant increases in fees. There was a request as well to implement some student and senior rates, which the township did offer in the past. And so there was quite a bit of feedback around the reintroducing those rates. And so you'll see that in here. And then the other piece of feedback that we received was from some of our user groups, particularly around ice arena rentals, where those user groups have a season that covers 2 years. And so when we were looking at comparators of other municipalities in the area, we found that they offer seasonal rates. The benefit of that is that, for example, Wingham Minor Hockey could be able to set their rates in the year for that year, as opposed to right now, in January, we will have to apply an increase. And then they will have to either make adjustments in their budget. And it affects not only Wingham Minor Hockey, but a number of our other user groups. So in light of that recommendation or that request and that situation, you will see that here. So the fitness center, there was no recommendations to make any changes to those rates. As you are aware, council directed us to change our service delivery. And so at this point, it didn't feel necessary to make any changes to that rate, although the 30% is still there in the column. With respect to the courts only, there is no recommendation in the rate. There is, as you know, an application forward to the Vance Fund to renovate that space in the complex. And so at this point, it didn't seem that it would be prudent to offer any changes to those fees, with the hope that that might be an opportunity for the township in the future. You will see the ice arena rentals there as discussed. Sorry, Chris, so yeah, we can go to the next one. Thank you. So there is your current fees and charges comparators. And we compared it to what, as close as possible as to what the township offers. So with respect to the pool, we compared it to townships that offer an indoor pool. Where you might see a blank or you might see an NA, that means that information wasn't available. And if there's a township there that wasn't included, for example, Central Huron isn't included in the, I don't think it's there yet, but in the sports field rates, it's because I was not able to gather that information. I was able to gather that information through either what was available on the township's website, or as I went through their past fees and charges bylaws, that's where I was able to gather that information. So you'll see here for aquatic instruction, there is where the red is our 3% increases, which was a modest increase, and to help us recover some of the costs, because this is basically instructor fees that we are looking to recoup. This is aquatic Aquafit memberships. And so here you'll see the introduction or the reintroduction of a student rate as well as a seniors rate, which was calculated at 20% discount from the general rate. Again, you will see that for the swim memberships. We've also done some rounding so that where possible on the daily rates, that it's for example, $4.50. It creates less onerous issues for the public to either come with change, and having staff have a lot of change at the front desk just doesn't feel like a good use of time when we can perhaps round it, and it just makes it easier for all to coming through our facility. We can support them in a very efficient manner. There are proposed increases of 3%. There's your summary there of arena floors, meeting rooms, Blythe Hall, Monday to Thursday rentals, and the Blythe Campground. And here's your recommendation for what those costs might look like. The Wingham Hall, Town Hall Theater, there are, and I'll speak, I don't know, interim CEO, but these recommendations are based on what we would be charging, that there would be, as you are aware, if another organization takes the theater over, they would have their own fees to apply. I don't know if there's any other feedback.
Thank you, Kelly. If council does have any specific questions regarding the Town Hall Theater proposed charges, I can get in touch with Denise and have her come down to answer those at the end if you prefer, if you wish. So I can speak. So as presented here, the recommended consolidation of private and community rehearsals to lump it into just one. Proposed portion of the rental fee, we're requesting that a portion of the rental fee gets transferred into a capital reserve, and the proposed removal of the additional fee for after 11:30 p.m. usage.
And with respect to our sports fields, there were significant increases to the rates in our sports fields last year, so no significant proposed rate changes have been offered. We have removed the per hour with lines, any reference there. That is not a service that we provide. The user group does that on their own. And the other introduction is lighting at a flat rate, as opposed to it was hourly before. And so based on some feedback council has received, it felt that this was a good direction to move in. Again, your ice arena rentals, as I spoke to previously, it would be changing the 2020, changing how we bill and how the fees are applied so that it is seasonal. For example, the rates that our user groups are paying right now would be maintained until August of 2025. And then if council so chooses to move in this direction, we would apply these recommended fees, which are a 3% increase to the user groups come August for their 2025-2026 season. This is our rink board advertising. Again, 3% increases are proposed on all of those charges. And the same for our ICE logo. And that's everything I have.
Thank you very much. I really appreciated Director Stace that you looked at the surveys and you gave them thorough looking at, and you came back with what you felt would be right. And I really appreciate that you listened to the public, and also we're getting some feedback. Thank you very much. So at this time, I'll take questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Back to the community town hall. You have performance private scratched per day for $550, and then performance community at $200. I'm wondering, should the private be kept on, because then it differentiates between performance then community.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer. When I sat with Denise and we were reviewing this, the word private between the two of us seemed like it was a private party, as if it was a personal function, not a function for somebody holding a concert or a performance.
Did you say professional? Not that community ones aren't professional, but see what I mean?
If that's councilors, yeah, we just absolutely, we just felt that we wanted to take the word private away, thinking that it was not a private birthday party function that was being held.
Right.
That was the intent behind that.
how else would you, how else would you call a, a band coming in? And it's,
For-profit or nonprofit.
yeah,
Yeah, so if I may, your worship, so my recommendation would be not so much to define private, but it would be more to define what a community group is, right? It's much easier to define community group. So you have your rehearsal or your performance rate, and then you have your community group rate. So it's much easier to know what a community group is, and anything that's not defined as a community group would fall under the other fee. So that would be my recommendation.
We'll go to Councillor Wright and then Councillor Van Hitterson, please.
Yeah, just a suggestion, perhaps profit and nonprofit would be a suitable way to distinguish between the two. And we don't have to belabor it too much here, because I know we'll probably get a report back with regards to the third-party RFP that's going on here, but I'm just curious because I know some of the language in there is that it was gonna be a cost recovery model between the municipality and the third party whenever there was an event being there. So is this proposed rate on top of cost recovery? Is it in lieu of cost recovery? I'm just trying to figure out how the proposed rental rate is going to work along with the potential third-party agreement that we'll have in place.
Through you, Reeve, to Councillor Wright. If council would be desirous, I could arrange for Denise Lucky to come and answer your questions. If we can move on with the presentation, not to hold up, and we can move back to that. I will have her come down if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Hitterson, please.
Thank you very much. Last year, we increased those fees for recreation with 70% and 30 coming in because our recreational services are very heavily subsidized. Director Stiles, do you have any idea how much the change in fees will affect the taxes for North Huron?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Van Hitterson. As a result of the challenges with our online registration system, as you are aware, that's come before council, it has made it challenging for us to be able to confidently answer that question about what that impact will be. But when I was putting together the proposal for you today, I based it on feedback from the community, feedback received from council around a threshold, around what can the community actually absorb. And so part of this is we want to get people in there. And so maybe you want to get more people paying a little bit less, but we want these facilities to be used. We also want people to come into our facilities and be able to get in the pool, to get on the arena floor, to get into our fitness center for their own health. And at the end of the day, there is a benefit to the township when we have healthy residents. There's less of a burden on other areas, which we've seen through different presentations that have come before us. So my hope is that over the next year and with our better accounting of our registrations, that we will have, we'll be able to monitor that over the year and come back to council if we're seeing any major changes.
Thank you. There's also a benefit to all taxpayers in North Huron if we keep our taxes under control. So I'm looking forward to that report. Thank you.
Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, just as a follow-up to that, I guess I'd just like some clarification on at this point in time, what staff are proposing as far as fee increases. Just because if I look at the first page where it has Aquafit, it shows what the individual fee is and what it would change if it went up to 30%. But then when I look at the slide, which shows Aquafit memberships, adults, but then what the student rate and what the senior rate would be, that's all based on what the current fee is, not what the 30% increase would be. So is the proposal that we hold our fees? And I'll just talk about Aquafit because it's an indicator, I think, of the other areas. Is a proposal that we hold our fees steady and then offer the student and senior rate discount, or that the individual rates be increased by 30% and student rates and senior rates would go up accordingly?
The, through you, Reeve Heffer, to Counselor Wright, the recommendation is suggesting no changes to aquatic memberships at this time. And so, but then also introducing the student and senior rates.
Okay, so then that's obviously the same proposal for swim memberships and some of the other areas as well.
Correct. The presentation has a little bit less information than what the fees and charges, just based on the ability to, for space and font size.
So then just as a point of interest, would we need a motion to reconsider the motion that we passed last year? Because it kind of almost said we have to increase it 30%. Or would a revised fee bylaw overrule that previous motion?
Yeah, through your worship, to answer Councilor Wright's question, my initial recommendation would be that you rescind the previous motion, but really as part of this reconsideration, it's in light of new information being available, right? So yeah, it works its way through its annual process, but just for clarity, it may not be a bad idea for council to pass a motion reconsidering that motion.
Sorry, Kev. Yeah, Deputy Reeve, please.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. In the data collection that you've gone through with the other municipalities, did any of the other municipalities indicate that they had out of zone pricing or out of municipality had any augmented pricing for someone outside of their communities, outside of their tax bases?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Deputy Reeve Faulkner, that wasn't a lens I used to scan that. I would say, and included that in my report. I would say that some municipalities have talked about that and others haven't. And it may be difficult, but doable. And certainly if that is something that council would desire, we can add that to this process.
There is or there isn't other municipalities doing it?
I would say that there's not a consistent pattern, I would say. So it happens some places and others not.
Councillor Palmer, please.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, in that motion that we were discussing, it talked about a pass. And it was in the 24, in this year's budget. I'm not seeing it here. Was that an oversight, or did you interpret the motion as it only included 2024?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer. There was no proposed changes to the basic membership package. As our understanding is staff, the amendment to Schedule G to phase in the increases to Aquafit memberships, swim memberships, fitness memberships, court rentals, and youth ice arena rentals. There was no direction to increase 30% to the basic package pass.
So if I may, through your worship, so in the track changes version of the fees and charges bylaw, you'll still see the basic package pass there, what all it includes, and there's no proposed changes. So because there was no proposed changes, it just wasn't drawn out in the slide deck.
Thank you. Any other questions at this time?
Yeah, so Denise is here now. So given we're still on Schedule G, it may be a prudent time to for council to ask their questions on the theater proposed fee changes.
Councillor Wright, you had a question, please?
Yeah, thank you. So I was just trying to understand how the proposed rental fee for the theater is going to work in connection with the discussions that are underway with the third party RFP, because I know some of the language in there was that the third party would reimburse the municipality on a cost recovery
Mhm.
method. So is this fee going to be on top of any cost recovery, or is it proposed to be in lieu of cost recovery? Just wondering how
Yeah.
two are going to
Through
work
you,
together.
Reeve Pepper. So this is actually whether we go with a third party or not. These fees would be applicable to either way. We thought we'd make that a little bit easier. So if the rental as it stands, that if we continue the operations, they would have the flat fee of if it's a community, so it's Almost Famous Players, I'll use an example. It would be $200 and then the hourly rate for any staff time. So if a third party was renting it and like third party was doing the operations and they were having a private rental, our cost that they would have to give us is the $550, but the hourly rate would be different because all we would be doing was opening the building and closing the building. Usually we would be charging an hourly rate to have somebody on site at all times, but if they are looking after the operations, they would be on site.
Okay, fine. Okay, any other questions for our community coordinator? So, thank you for coming up. Appreciate
course.
that very much.
Okay, thank you, Reeves. So you can move on. We're looking at Schedule H, which is the water and wastewater fees and charges. I'll pass it over to Director McAllister, but so far, as it's been presented, the fees have been adjusted in accordance with the bylaw number 077-2024 to adopt the water and wastewater financial plans for 2024 to 2033 for the Township of North Huron.
So the proposed addition of and/or to water and wastewater connection fees. Currently, we only charge for a water connection fee. If someone wants to come and connect to the sewer, there is no charge. So we want to make it standard across the board. So anytime they're opening up our road to connect to both water and wastewater, there is a charge for that.
That was an easy one for you. And, yeah,
Okay.
so move to schedule.
No,
J.
I just had one question, if you don't mind, on North Huron Water, commercial or industrial, they're charged $40 and then they pay 90 cents per cubic meter. On our bill before as of now, we're paying $140 as a resident per cubic meter. I'm just curious why they should be getting it for 0.9 and we're paying 1.4. I just feel everybody's using the water tower. Everybody should be paying for that cost. Just my question to you is.
Yeah, through you, Reeve, and members of council, the numbers that you see established in the fees and charges bylaw with the track changes, those are the fees that were approved by council in the water and wastewater financial plans. So that was a mirror image of what was already approved by council.
Yes, I'm aware of that, but I'm just curious why commercial, and I don't remember that coming up being asked, and I missed it. Why do they get it 50 cents cheaper using the same things as residents in town use? Just curious.
If I may, Reeve, if you would like, we could bring back a report to identify that. That's what was previously done. We certainly don't have that information on hand, but I would be more than happy to bring a report back to you explaining the history and providing some options to council if that is what council desires. I'd be more happy to do that.
I'd appreciate just to see what other municipalities, if they charge that quite a bit cheaper. I know it came back quite a few years ago. That discussion came up, but it didn't go anywhere. I just curious. Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, thank you, Rave. Yeah, I know we passed these figures for the water sewer rates for individual homes. You know, I think back and I sort of look forward to issues we have. I'm just wondering why the water and sewer rates aren't similar, aren't the same? Because it's the same pumping, same plumbing, same work to repair. It just strikes me as, why should they differ?
So through you, Reeve, it's not exactly the same pumps and stuff for that. There's different pumps.
I know that, but
And it costs more to treat the wastewater than it does to produce the water.
yeah, but the fee's less.
Wait, sorry, which fee are we referring to?
I'm just saying the water rate is basically $76, $912 a year, and the sewer is $744. It's okay, not the same pumps, but pumps. We've got treatments, we've got all the piping. Well, and to repair, it's the same process of maintenance. It just, I know we're splitting hairs almost, but through time and the number of households, it would amount to more money to deal with for maintenance.
So through you, Reeve, to Councillor Palmer, if I recall correctly, this was brought forward as the water fees and charges.
So,
And we had laid it out there from the engineer on what, you know, the suggestions were. And I believe council recommended 10 and 4%. I don't remember which was for which off the top of my head, but that's where that decision was made, if I recall correctly.
it's more seeing where we're at and the expense of dealing with our assets. Then it gets you thinking, oh, okay, maybe we should have made a change or something. That's all. I just want to make that point.
Thank you. Any other questions over the water and wastewater at this time? Seeing none?
Thank you. Moving into Schedule J, which is the emergency services and non-emergency services. I can speak on Director Krieger. The only proposed change in Schedule J is the removal of the fee for the SCBA cylinder refills, as these are costs are fully recoverable from the Fire Marquee program that we are involved with. Schedule K, development charges. These have been adjusted in accordance with bylaw number 074-2021, established development charges. This has been calculated at 3.3%. As Part 3, Section 11 of our development charges bylaw, it states the development charges imposed pursuant to this bylaw may be adjusted annually on January 1 without amendment to this bylaw in accordance with the Statistics Canada Quarterly Non-Residential Building Construction Price Index for Toronto. And the 25 rates have been calculated at 3.3% for 2025. And the following slides just show those track changes at that 3.3% change.
Okay, at this time, it's open for questions. So I'm just asking members, do you have any questions? Come back to you after. I know there's a lot of information brought to us and really appreciate the reports that came back. They're really very well done and just appreciate that. Go ahead, Councillor Van Hitterson, please.
Thank you to Director Towns. The 3.2% increase for these fees, you think that's sufficient, or do we need to review that in half a year or anything like that?
As it is, through you, Reeve, Councillor Van Hitterson, as it's laid out in the bylaw, these were done in consultation with BM Ross, and that is their recommendation. When I calculated that 3.3%, I did reach out to confirm that we were in line, and that's what was suggested.
Thank you. Any other questions from any council members, please? Go ahead, Counselor Palmer, please.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. This is back in the daycare. I know there were no changes, but Director Stace, could you please explain? I think a lot of us are confused about, it's the provincial $10 a day deal, and it used to be almost cost recovery. It basically was through the years, and it wasn't last year, from what I remember. How are things changing? How do we receive our funding?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer. Most recently, the government has made an announcement that there will be changes coming to the program, to the childcare program in January, and I would be happy to bring a full report along with our interim manager, Tiffany, once those changes have been introduced, and advise council as to what those new that new program, how that impacts the township's delivery of childcare services in partnership with the county. So I think within that, there are some variations. We have signed on with the Canada-wide early learning, which they call CWALC, or CWALC. But there are different applications getting it down to $10 a day. And I think it would be helpful if we brought a report back to council.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
So are we in in the budget though? How is it going to look? Is it going to be positive for us or negative?
So in our budget that will be coming within the next little while, I will be able to comment more fully on that when we are able to present the full budget to council.
Thank you. Any other questions from any member? Seeing none, Clerk Lamb, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I guess the easiest way to go about this now would be to deal with Schedule G and the motion previously directed separately from the rest. And then once we have that direction, then we can continue on in the process. So if council wants to reconsider that previous decision, you would need to pass a motion to reconsider. So just as a reminder, based on the provisions of your procedure bylaw, only those who voted in favor of the previous motion, so that motion was motion 358 of 23, can move a motion to reconsider, no debate on the motion to reconsider is permitted, but the mover of that motion to reconsider can make a brief and concise statement outlining the reasons for proposing such reconsideration. If the motion of reconsideration passes, then your next item of business would actually be to conduct that reconsideration. Since this today is over 1 year past when the original motion was adopted, only a simple majority, so 4 out of 7 members of council is required to make that reconsideration. So if council was desirous of reconsidering it, your motion would be that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby agrees to reconsider motion M35823 at the November 22nd, 2024 special council meeting. So just based on memory of who moved that original motion, it was Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Palmer, and it was a 4-3 vote with Councillor Wright, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Whitfield, and Reeve Heffer voting in favor of it. So
Go ahead, Counselor Wright, please.
Yeah, so I'll move that we make that motion to reconsider, simply because it doesn't preclude staff from increasing those fees 30%, if that's what makes sense. It just gives them the option of whether to do that or not. Thank you.
Seconder, please. Counselor Palmer. All in favor? Carried.
So then council can have a discussion on the fees more, or if you're satisfied with staff direction on or staff recommendations on those fees, then I have a motion there. And again, I think we would deal with, as part of this reconsideration, we'll deal with Schedule G separately, and then we'll go back to the remainder of the bylaw. Yep.
Just wait for Clerk Lamb to give us a motion.
So the motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby agrees to proceed with the fees as proposed by staff at the November 22nd, 2024 special council meeting for Schedule G, and no longer continue to proceed with the remaining 30% phased increase to Aquafit memberships, swim memberships, fitness memberships, court rentals, and youth ice arena rentals as previously directed by motion M 35823.
Mover, please. Counselor Palmer, seconder. Counselor Whitfield.
Can I ask a question, Reeve? I just for clarification, why does it make sense to deal with Schedule G separately from the rest of the proposed fee changes?
And the reason I suggest that is just because you're dealing with Schedule G as part of the reconsideration process, not as part of the remainder of this report. So that way you have clarity on what you're doing with the reconsideration of whether you're providing different direction in regard to that reconsideration, and then you'll deal with the rest of it.
Okay, we have mover, seconder. All in favor? Carried. For seconder, I think Counselor Palmer, Counselor Whitfield.
So then, yeah, the remaining motion is the staff recommended motion that was accompanying with the report and presentation, which would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Finance Treasurer dated November 22nd, 2024 regarding the 2025 draft fees and charges bylaw for information purposes, and further that council directs staff to prepare a bylaw adopting the 2025 fees and charges for the December 2nd, 2024 regular council meeting. And then but I would add, subject to an amendment to define theater rental rates using for-profit and not-for-profit classifications based on the discussion.
Point of order, Reeve. I thought when we talked about cemetery fees, we kind of set those discussions aside because we're waiting for, there's going to be a follow-up report presented.
Yeah, so my recommendation would be that if council was to make changes to your fees and charges bylaw, we would bring back an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw. That gives you a bylaw in place for continuation of the budget process, and you have something in place so it's clear staff know clearly what to charge until those decisions are made by council, and that way you can consider any changes you want to make as you change the way you do business in regard to cemeteries or the theater arrangement, for example, would be potentially another one.
Hey, Counselor Van Henderson, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm looking over those recreation fees again, and the 30% increase is 30% of the ticket price, and I don't think that was our intention. It was 30% of the increase in the fees, not the total fee or the total ticket.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Van Henderson. Last year, when staff presented the fees and charges bylaw and council directed for this 70% and 30%, the 70% of the fee was 70% of the proposed fee, and the 30% of the fee was the remainder of the original proposed fee.
But if sorry, looking at the Aquafit membership, a day pass, I just picked the top one, and a ticket will be $7. And a 30% increase will make that to $10, but that is the total price of the ticket, not the increase of the
That is the
ticket.
correct. It is the total price. So initially through you, Reeve, last year, the proposal was that it would have been for an example, $10.
Yeah.
So the rate was actually at $7. So the other 30% now would make it $10 now if the 30% was applied.
All right, then I misunderstood probably.
Need a mover and a seconder.
Yep.
I need a mover and a seconder, please, for the last motion that Clerk Lamb read out to you. Counselor Wright. Seconder, Counselor Whitfield. All in favor? Carried. Bylaws. Bylaw number 87-2024, appointment of interim chief administrative officer and director of legislative service / clerk. May I have a mover? Deputy Reeve, Councillor Van Hitterson. All in favor? Carried. Confirmatory bylaw. 8.1, bylaw number 88-2024, confirmatory bylaw. May I have a mover? Deputy Reeve, Councillor McBurney, all in favor? Carried. Adjournment, that the Council of the Township of North Huron agrees that there being no further business before council, the November 22, 2024 special council meeting be hereby adjourned at 10:15. May I have a mover? Councillor Wright, Councillor Whitfield, all in favor? Carried.